By the way, looking at my previous video that I just uploaded, I saw that there was one thing that IntelliSense corrected incorrectly for me. And that is when we come down here, it autofilled audio file location and put it in twice, when what I actually wanted this first one to be is the audio file label text on here. So let me save that. Another thing that I was thinking of when we're getting ready to save and do edits and things like that, when we're doing the all words here, we actually need to clear out this before we load them. So if we're loading after it's closed again and we're restarting, we want to make sure this all words is clear. So we'll do all words clear, and we'll just set that in before we then go through and load everything. Now, when we come back to Manage Lexicon, we are ready to start to figure out how we're going to edit the words that are populated in here. So how do we populate the lexicon words and the target words? Well, these are actually populated based on the language that's selected. So first, we're going to need to come in where the language is changed. So when we come over here, we can actually click on this little lightning bolt over here. And we can see that selected index changed is already in here. Double click on that, and that brings us to where we've got these two methods. So we're currently using this to just determine whether the right to left is in place or not. But what we'll need to do as well is we'll also need to come through, and if the selected index is not -1, so it's actually choosing something, we're going to then need to load the words and then push them into the list box. So this is what we're going to do. So the first thing that we're going to need to add in here is we're going to come up to the top, and we're going to need a list of all the lexicon words and a list of all the target words. So we can just do a public list words. We can say all lexicon words, and that's going to be a new list of words. And then we can have a public list of words here, which are going to be all target words. And that's going to also be a new list of words. We'll put this in place here. Now, just like we have to load the languages, we're also going to need to load the words. So here we can make a new method. And what this method is going to return is going to be a list of words. We'll just call this load words. And we're going to need the long, and the long that we're going to be needing is the language ID that we're going to be looking for. So put this in. We're going to need to create our temporary list from in here. So we're going to actually just do this. They already gave us this example. And I also want to do a just regular word of temp word. And that's going to be a new words as well. So this is how we're going to be able to pull things in, but we're also going to need to go ahead and build the file. And if you remember, the file structure of how we're doing the words, we'll come back over here for a second, is we use the variable up here like this. So this is our language directory. And in fact, I can just copy this over, come over to here, put this in, and we're going to do a string of language directory. And we'll set that to nothing, but then it's going to be like this down here. Now, language ID value is actually going to be the ID that we're pulling in from here. So we can actually just take this value off, and it will work in this little function here. So once we've got that, then we're going to open and read the file contents and then store it. And then we're going to push this data back. So that, again, is the same thing that we did down here when we're loading the words. So I can actually just go ahead and copy this as well. And it's tempting actually to just go ahead and make this a static method and have it all pushed through, but we don't really need to do that. And actually, the way that this is, I don't even need to create that because it'll be down here. Now, the difference here is instead of all words, we're going to make sure that this is going to just be words, because that's what we've created for this. And so this down here is going to be words as well. So we will add in all of this. And then when this whole thing is done, we will just say return words. So we will return all of that. So this is how we're going to load the results that we need. But how do we actually trigger that? So we'll come down here and we'll prepare. So first of all, remember, we've got the selected item that's coming through already in this place. And this is going to rely on the dictionary that is able to tell us what the language ID is. And what we're going to pass in is going to be this value equals the language ID. This will be the language ID when looked up in the dictionary. So we can just do a quick temporary value here. We can also just put this into the line of code, but to make it a little bit clearer, I'm going to make a long. It's going to be the send language ID, and that's going to be the dictionary of language IDs at the cbox lexicon languages dot selected item dot to string value. So put that in. So now we just set the all lexicon words. We can go ahead and clear that out first, and then we can say all lexicon words is set to load words where we send in send language ID to load it. This is just giving us a list of the words back, and we still need to iterate through and get them in the correct list box. So let me go ahead and copy this. We're going to do the same thing down here. It'll be right after this else statement, and we'll put that in there. And this is going to, of course, be the target languages down here, and this is going to be the target words and the target words here. So that will get this in place. So we'll save that. And next up, we'll be adding it to the list box. Now, what are some limitations when we add to the list box? Well, first of all, I don't want there to be too many items in there. So let's come up to the top here, and we're going to do an integer. We'll say max list box items, and we can set this to say 100. Although for testing, for testing, let's set it to 2. But for this, we're going to say set to 100 when not testing. So I'll remember to do that, of course. Yeah, you've seen how well I remember things in here. So basically, the list box can hold quite a bit of items, but the longer that the lists get, the more inconvenient they are. That's why I have the text boxes that we can use to search through the list boxes later. But before we get to that, we're first going to need to at least populate them with something. So that's going to be, of course, another method or another function that we're going to be updating down here. So let's see, I'm going to put it right here. So it'll be right before we get to the buttons. And what this is going to be, it's going to be a private, and we don't need to return anything. So it's going to be a void. And this will just be update list box. And what we're going to do is, because we have multiple list boxes, we're going to actually pass in a list box. And so we'll call this past LB for the pass in list box. And we're actually also going to need to have words that we're going to be putting in. And so we'll call these past words. So when this comes in, the first thing we can do is we can take whatever the past LB is, we'll clear out the items, and we're going to then load all of them. But in order to make sure that we were doing this correctly, we're going to need a variable. So we'll start with the int, and we're going to be the max counter, and that's going to be set to the max list box items to start with. But then we're going to do a test. So we're going to say if the past words dot count is less than max counter, then and only then we can make the max counter equal to the past words count. And probably to be a little bit on the safer side, we can actually make this the max list box items that we're comparing it to. It should be the same because we're assigning it right here, but just for clarity, we're going to check and see if the count is less than that. If it's less than that, we will include the ones that are there. But if it's more than that, we will only include those. Then we're going to need to loop through and add these items. But to make the list actually work well, we're going to need to sort the items first. So let's do a quick list of strings. And this is going to be the word names. And we're going to set this to a new list of strings. And we're going to do for int I equals 0, I less than past words dot count I plus plus. We're going to go through all of these. Then what we'll do is we will add a string of temp word name is equal to past words I dot word or phrase. And then we will add to word names add temp word name, right? And so of course, obviously up here, it should be clearing that out because it's a brand new one at this point. That's not going to carry through. So this should all be good. We don't have to worry about that. Once this is done, what we're going to do is we're going to say word names and we're going to sort it. So this will make it alphabetical. And now what we'll do finally, so we'll put in for int I equals 0, I is less than max counter I plus plus. And now we will loop through the word names itself instead of all of the lists. So we'll do word names and we'll do the index of I. And this is actually what we're going to be adding. So so we're going to add this to the past LB dot items dot add. I'm going to do word names at that index. So we'll add it in that way. This will then update the past LB and we'll have the information that we're looking for. And actually, I just realized we don't want this to be the void. We want this to actually be the list box, because what we're going to do at the end is, after all this, we're going to return past LB. So this is how we're going to do this. So we're going to do the L box of lexicon words is going to be the update list box where we pass in L box of lexicon words, and then we pass in the all lexicon words list. So we'll do that. We can copy this, come down here, and do the same thing here. And of course, again, make our changes. This is going to be the target words, update list box, and we're going to update that with the target words here and all target words there. So we'll save this and let's see if this actually works. So this should be any time that the combo box changes the language. So we'll do this. With the testing that I've done so far, we should have some English words in. So I'll select the user, come over to here, do manage lexicon, come over to this and select English. And you can see we have this hi in there. So let's go ahead and come back here and we'll add in test. Open audio. I'm doing this just because I know these exist. So we'll save that and then come back, and we need to switch and then come back. Now it says test, but it actually didn't save hi. It overwrote that. I see what the issue is. Okay. So here's the issue. The issue is that language directory doesn't exist at the point where we call that. So we need to actually switch the order here. So this should now work. We'll load this up, come over to here, do this, come down to here, do the language. I hit the wrong button. We'll come down here, do manage lexicon, pull this over, move it to English, we'll add, test, we'll save, come back over to here. Come back to English, and now we've got both words. So we did a little troubleshooting and we got the correct answer. Now we need to figure out how we can refresh this screen when it comes back and how we can then double click on these and edit what we were working on. Well, first, let's handle the refresh. It's actually fairly simple. So we can scroll up here. This is where we are opening the dialog that we're using. And when this is done, we can just simply continue after the show dialog. Because remember, after the show dialog is completed, it sends back a response and then we can continue from this point. So what we can do first of all is we can just use the language sent up here to see which one was sent. So we put in if language sent is the same thing as CBox for lexicon languages dot selected item to string, then we know that it is the lexicon combo box that was sent. So the lexicon list box is what needs to be updated. So if this is the case, then we need to take the word that was sent and add it to our all languages. Now remember, when we were using the manage words, I created a variable that will let us send back. So that was set right here. So the current word that was added here is then sent as a returned item. So what we can do at this point, coming back down, is we can just add the returned item. So we know this is going to be the lexicon. So all lexicon words dot add, and we're going to add returned item. So that will be what we'll put in there. And of course, if that's not the right one, then we will do all target words dot add returned item. So we'll add it to the right one. Next, we know the list box we're going to update is LBox lexicon words. And that's going to be the update list box function where we pass in LBox lexicon words. And we pass in the all lexicon words. So we're going to be passing that in. Again, the same thing down here, except it's going to be switched over to target again. So we'll update this. Update that. Then what we need to do is we're going to need to take the search lexicon word.text and clear it out. And down here, we're going to do the same thing with the search target word.text, and we clear that out. That way we're resetting everything and we're ready to go. So this is how we can refresh the list boxes when we're done. So let's test this out really quick. Load this up like we've been doing. Go to database, manage lexicon, come over to English, and let's add another one. And we'll just do a second test. Doesn't matter because I'm going to be getting rid of these. And remember, we're limiting to 2 items. So we see only 2 items exist. So that's good. And it refreshed. It shows the second one here. So if we add in, for example, AAAA, that should be at the very beginning. And there you go, AAAA, and hi is next. So the next question, the next step is how do we edit when we double click? And then finally, how do we search for it when we go here? And then to end the lexicon, which will be in another video, we're going to need to show how to link and unlink the selected words from one language to another. So to set the double click, we just come over to the design. We click once on here and then come over and click the events icon up here, which looks like the lightning bolt. That's because double clicking on here is actually the selected index changed, and that's when the number changes, but we actually are looking for when there is a double click, and we'll use the double click up here. You can probably do the same thing with a mouse double click, but I'm using this one up here. We just double click in this and it creates this here. We come back and do the same thing over here with this one. So now we've got these 2 methods. So when something is double clicked, then it's going to run this, and we're going to need to grab the selected index of what was double clicked. When you double click, the first click does select the index, and the double click is what will launch this, but we still need to know. So from here, we're going to need to make sure that the LBox lexicon words dot selected index is not equal to -1. And the same thing here will be down here with, of course, the update to target words. Now, if it's not -1, then what we're going to be doing is we're still going to launch the open window. So we come back up to this, and we're going to be sending that same command here. So we can actually just copy this here. We're going to be sending the exact same information that we need on this. What we're going to be sending there, the language sent, all of that is still the same. So we can do the open word window with the CBox lexicon languages, because the combo box stores the languages, dot selected item to toString. Then the word being sent is the LBox lexicon words.selected item toString. And then finally, the bool right to left, we can actually fill out this from our previous one. So this is what we're actually going to be sending in. And we'll once again come back over here and change these because this is going to be the target language. This is going to be the target words. And this over here is going to be the target words as well. And target, not target. So there we go. Save that. Now, there's only one problem with this, is if we come back up here, we can see we don't know that edit mode needs to be put in place. So we actually do need to add a Boolean for edit mode. And that means, of course, we're going to have to add in down everywhere else that we're doing this when we come in here, that this is going to be a false down here. And this here is going to be false. But down here, that's going to be true. And here it will be true as well. And then we scroll back up to here. And then we can just do manage word.edit mode is set to edit mode. So it'll be either true or false depending on what it's set from here. This comes up, we select the user, we go to database, we go to manage lexicon, we go to English, and we double click on this It comes up with this. I'm going to change this to 2, just to make something different. Come in and let's see if it actually saved the difference. And when we refresh, it does. So as you can see, one of the issues is that once we're done, it doesn't automatically refresh the screen that we did up in here. Okay, so after all of that, I think because we actually saved the data in here, we probably can just reload it using this here. So we'll come up here. And we don't even really need this stuff at all. We just put this here. We don't need to add that in because when we reload it, it will be in the lexicon. And then when we come here, we paste this in. And of course, this is going to be where we have to change this to target again. Target there. Target there. Target there. Target there. And target there. We do still want to clear out these text boxes though. So let's save that and let's see if this fixes the issue that we were looking for. So this runs, we select this, we come in here, we do this, select English, we double click on this, we can do AAA, save that, and there we go. Now it's updated. So we can come to here, we can say hello, we save that, and it updates. So that's the trick. That's what we actually need to do on there. So I was overcomplicating things, but this happens from time to time. So now we've got the ability to do everything except search. So we'll be doing the search next, and then we're going to link and unlink. And that will be in our next video.